Right. Are we adjusted right? We ready to go?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Welcome to the podcast Redeemed. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to finish up Ruth today.
Ruth.
That's the plan. We got 2 more chapters, 3 and 4. We're going to combine them and try to pull something from it.
It's a short book.
It is a very short book. Good book, but short book.
Good book.
And the chapters aren't super long.
All right. So what's the best advice you ever got? Any advice at all?
This is
Why? Okay, so we
This is-
spent so much
this is one
time
of those
talking about
things-
it, and then you couldn't ask that.
No. Part of it
So
was
we didn't have this long silence
part of
that
it
I
was
have
the
to edit
surprise.
out.
I'm gonna scissor kick you in the back of the head.
Well, I figured it would come a little quicker than that.
I mean, about what?
Anything.
Anything?
About life. What was the best advice you ever got?
What's the best advice you ever got?
Well, he probably prepared for it.
I know, and he still hasn't answered. So it's more embarrassing for him.
Pray with my wife on a daily basis. Not saying I do it, but that was the best
That was
advice
the
I ever
advice
got.
you ever got?
All right.
I don't know if it's advice,
Let's
but
move
I
on.
was always told that you're as close to the Lord or as far away from the Lord as you want to be,
Oh, that's good.
because He's the same always.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that one always hits me whenever
I like it
think about that.
because it's up to you.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because in the chapter we're going to be reading,
Ruth gets some
There
advice.
was
she gets some advice.
Some weird advice.
But
But
life-changing
advice.
advice.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It's weird advice, but life-changing advice.
It was. It was.
And so I was just wondering if you've ever had any life-changing advice
Yeah.
that made you completely change the way you did things.
That
Of
was
course,
mine.
one of those life-changing things that I did was ask the Lord into my life.
Yeah.
But, as we walk through life, we do constantly get advice. And sometimes it's not the advice that we want. Sometimes it's non-solicited advice.
Yeah.
But there's always advice being given.
Yeah.
And you have a choice whether or not to listen to that advice or not to listen to that advice. And in our particular scenario, in this story of Ruth, it was very good advice. And in the end, it was what's going to allow Ruth and Naomi to be able to live a decent life.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do? Well, we left off with Ruth, and she was gleaning, in the field of Boaz.
Yep.
So we have this introduction of characters of Boaz and Ruth. Now, that is going to continue, and it's going to expand a little bit, especially once Naomi finds out that Boaz is actually a kinsman redeemer,
Yes.
which, according to my commentaries that I was reading and researching, the kinsman redeemer is somebody who is close enough in relation to Naomi that he could take over her late husband's responsibilities
Got it.
if he chose to. It wasn't one of those things that he had to, but he could.
Makes sense.
And so Naomi was excited when she found out that Boaz was this.
It's fair.
Boaz did have to ask somebody else who was a closer kinsman redeemer to Naomi. That guy said no and handed him a sandal, which was the custom of what you do. He's like,
Here's my shoe.
yep, here's my shoe. And it was a sign that no,
So
he didn't want to
weird.
do it, and that he told Boaz,
Why couldn't we just
you
say
can buy
no?
it. And so
Just no, thank you.
that's how it ends, okay? But what we have here is once Naomi finds out this, she gives Ruth some advice. Now, that advice seems pretty weird to us,
Yeah.
but according to what I was reading, it was just the
The time.
custom.
Yep.
Of
Custom of
that
the
time.
time. But it's weird.
It's very weird. Almost like giving someone a sandal to say no.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird customs in the Middle Eastern region, and a lot of weird things that you don't do. Like in Turkey, greatest sign of disrespect: you show somebody the bottom of your foot.
Of your foot or your shoe?
Foot.
Okay, barefoot.
Well, who's to see
Well,
the bottom of your
shoe,
foot? I get
foot.
that.
Yeah, that's
Shoe,
that's
foot.
fair.
But it's like
I would
the-
think you're being
it's
disrespectful too.
the ultimate sign of disrespect over there.
Interesting.
Yep, they told us that one of the first things. Like this is.
And you're like, when does that come up?
Yeah. So it's like, so I don't put my foot out the window when I'm driving around, but yeah, that was one of the things that they told you.
Huh.
Anyways, just a brief example of the Middle Eastern customs.
Well, yeah, and it's customs of times too, because or custom of time, because back then, if the husband died and he had a brother, that brother could actually marry the other brother's wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which seems
weird to us.
weird to us, but back then they had multiple wives.
Right.
You know, so it
makes sense because then they're taken care of.
Right, because back then the inheritance never went to the women; it always went to the males.
Yep. Yeah.
So even if she didn't have any male heirs, it would still go to the nearest male.
She ain't getting it.
Correct.
Yeah.
She's not getting it anyways. So.
No.
And so this way, I guess it kind of it was they were able to find some kind of life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, as the commentary said, if Boaz had said no, they would have probably lived in poverty. That's just the way it works. So, but anyway, listen to this advice. So now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor, and she did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. So what this basically was saying here, from what I was reading, researching, because like I said, it seems odd to me too, but it was Ruth's way of saying that she chose Boaz if he was willing to do this. That she was actually basically willing to marry him.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And that she was willing to move forward with this. And what's interesting is Boaz took that as something very special to him because Ruth chose him. And the commentaries were saying that, you know, she could have chose someone younger, someone richer, but she didn't. She chose Boaz. And so then Boaz basically says yes. He goes to the other kinsman redeemer, makes sure that he doesn't want it. He says no. They trade sandals. They stand in front of the council as witness. They're the elders of the town.
Yep.
And he says, "You're my witnesses." They say, "Yes, we witness it." Boom, it's done. He becomes kinsman redeemer. Very shortly later, he marries Ruth. And they have a son, and that son's name is Obed, who is the father of Jesse. And Jesse is the father of David.
Oh.
King David.
King David. The David.
The David.
The David. Which is also the line and lineage of
Jesus.
So
Crazy.
Interesting how it all plays out.
Yeah.
Everything's connected.
It's crazy. What a coincidence.
It is.
Just a winky dink.
Yeah. And in the end, Naomi and Ruth were taken care of too, so it was all good. So she went from somebody who didn't have anything to back to she had a normal life.
Yeah.
But the moral of what I was trying to get there, the concept is that sometimes we're going to get advice. Now we need to make sure that it's godly advice, because we, like I said earlier, we have a lot of people in our lives that will give you advice. Everybody thinks they have the opinion and the option to give you advice.
Everyone knows everything.
Now you do have to sort through this. But in the end, in our story, Naomi was a trustworthy person who Ruth could trust to give good advice.
Yes.
And she followed that advice.
She was wise counsel.
Yes. And we have to make sure that in our own life we're taking wise counsel as well. Because in the end, we don't know what advice we could be given that could actually change our life. Or we don't know who God is using to speak into our lives.
Right.
And I would say at that particular point, God was using Naomi to speak into Ruth's life.
Yeah.
And in the end, he was able to set it up so that they were in the line and lineage of Jesus.
Good thing she listened.
Good thing she listened.
Good thing she was smart.
And really, that's what it comes down to, is if she hadn't listened, what a different
What would
story
have happened?
it would have been. But it didn't, and it happened just like Naomi told her it would. She did and that's it too. She did exactly what Naomi said.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a lot of times, we'll get advice and we'll do the advice
Part of
halfway.
Yeah.
Like
Well, this part makes sense. I'm not going to do the other part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not laying at the foot of his bed.
I'm not uncovering his feet.
Yeah.
Gross.
Not doing any of that. I'll go knock on his door.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, follow the advice to the letter.
If, like I said, if you've checked it and you realize it's coming from a godly source.
Yep.
And we all have those people in our lives who we listen to, that we trust them. And most of the people in my life that are giving me advice, or I have given that place to give me advice are people who are following the Lord.
Yeah.
And have been following the Lord for a much longer time than I.
Same.
And so they can see things from the outside of my life that I don't see because I'm so close to it.
Yeah.
So don't throw advice out. Make sure you check it.
Vet it.
But you don't know what advice could be given that could change your life, much like what happened with Ruth. And then follow it to the letter.
Yep.
All right. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.